Hi guys, and welcome back to part 2 of servicing this Renault Sport Clio 172 Cup. If you haven't seen part 1, there'll be a link in the description below. This is part 2, and we're going to be covering changing the alternator belt, changing the brake fluid, servicing the brakes, and checking over the suspension components. So if you want to know how to do that, then stick around. So next job on the list, which again, it's not something you would normally necessarily need to do on a service, but when I pulled this car out of the weeds a year or two ago and rebuilt it so I could use it on the road again, one of the things I needed to replace was the alternator. Now, did the timing belt and everything at the same time. There's a video all about that on the channel, so I will put a link in the description to that video. But at the time, for some reason, I tried everywhere but couldn't get a belt for the alternator, so I just had to fit the original one back, which actually isn't in too bad of condition, as you can see down there. But I've got a new one for it now, so we are going to fit that. So the first thing we are going to do is, I think we will just disconnect the earth lead off the battery. So that is this one here, just so there's no power going to the back of the alternator, because there's basically a live feed from the battery straight to the back of the alternator, which it should be fine, but just to be on the safe side. And then process being on this is this bolt, it's hard to see, but this nut down here, this one down here, let that refocus, come on refocus. You can just about see it there. That needs slackened off, and then this one here is what actually moves the alternator in and out, which in turn tensions the belt. So we need to slacken the bottom one off first, and then we need to screw this one so it lets the tension off the belt. So we'll get on and do that. Alright, yep, sorry, forgot to mention there is also another bolt. And you see it's just out of shot in the camera here, but the other bolt holding the alternator on, I just need to slacken that off as well. So are they maybe 15, something like that? That must be a 16. Am I going to get this with one, or am I going to need two? No, it's coming. There we go, that's it. Loose there now. So this adjustment screw here is now kind of screwing it out of the where it's screwed into, so that's allowing the belt to go slack. If I remember rightly, yeah, I think that's as much as it's going to go. So we want to just take a note of the which way the belt goes. So round the crankshaft pulley, and then the goes round the belt goes round the back of the belt, goes round the water pump, and the front of the belt is around the power steering and the alternator. Would be wise to take a photo if you're not 100% sure, but that should pop off. Might need a little bit of persuading to come over the pulley. Which wasn't too bad, but I can guarantee you the new one will be a lot harder to get off than that. There's not a great lot of room down the side of here. Let's see, new belt here. Just want to make sure it looks about the same, which it certainly does. So there you go. That's back on. So you just want to have a bit visual inspection and make sure that the V's of the belt are in the associated correct V's of the pulleys. Which, from what I can see and feel, that all looks good. Well, that wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. I now have got the problem of my adjuster bolt has come out of the adjuster that it screws into, which isn't ideal. Have we got lucky? Oh, I think we have. Right. A lot of more modern cars will probably have some sort of auto tensioner, spring loaded, something that'll tension this belt. But this being an older, lightweight racing edition, it hasn't. It's just got a bolt. So just want to pull that so the belt is tensioned. So you just want a bit of deflection in the belt, but not a great load, but too much tension on the belt. You'll wear all the bearings out in the water pump, the alternator, too quickly, but a little bit of deflection there, that should be fine. So that is okay in that position. So we'll now nip this nut up. There. And then our other mountain bolt, we'll get that nipped up. Hopefully I'll get away with not needing another spanner. Right, is that nipped? Well, yeah, we've still got a bit of deflection in it, so that should be fine. Right, that's all good, all done. I'll just give you a kind of quick look at the old belt. That's going to focus. I mean, there wasn't anything majorly wrong with it, but the fact that it had been, I mean, this belt's, had one on when I first got the car, so it'll be 12-year-old this belt. But what you're normally looking for is cracking, kind of cracking in the V's. But that actually looks in pretty good condition. But that is a genuine Renault belt, so hey ho, it's done well. So next on the to-do list is brakes. So primarily the brake fluid. Now again, intervals vary, but I want to do it on this car. I had new brake fluid last year, but I took it to a track day in September and the brakes didn't feel right afterwards. Now it's just got standard brake fluid in. I was quite hard on the brakes, so I think I've probably cooked the fluid. So I've got a full tin of the fluid, .4 brake fluid. So what we'll do is we will take the wheel off, jack the car up, well, slacken the wheel nuts off, jack the car up, take the wheel off, and then we will bleed the brakes through and have a look at some of the other bits and pieces while we've got the wheel off. So slacken the wheel nuts off. Want to do it with the car on the ground still. Just get them slackened off first before we jack it up, as so. I just want it up enough so the wheel just comes off the ground. And then where's my Ugga Dugga gun? I'll just whip the wheel nuts. Well, the bolts technically. Right, there we go. Right, I'll grab an axle stand just to be on the safe side. just want that in somewhere. Just under, it's just under one of the subframe bolts there. Right, so nice and safe. So this whole front suspension looks like it could do with a bit of a refurb. I've done the whole back axle. If you want to see that video, I'll put a link in the description below. Right, we'll get on with bleeding these brakes. So since we're going to bleed the brakes, this is the brake reservoir down the back of the engine there. There's a little connector onto the lid, which is obviously to tell you when the fluids are low. So we're going to whip that connector off and then unscrew the lid so we can keep an eye on the level when we're bleeding the brakes. So here's a top little tip. Here is my custom designed tool for making sure I don't spill any brake fluid while trying to keep the reservoir topped up. So this is a high quality plastic water bottle. It's a Morrison's Yorkshire Vale one, so that's the brand you need. And the size of the lid sits into the top of the reservoir perfectly. Would you look at that? I think it was made for the job. So to get the fluid changed on the brakes, we're going to have to take the slacken the bleed screw off here. Now this looks awfully rusty, but I have been bled not that long ago, so fingers crossed this doesn't snap. Oh, that felt alright, hopefully. Oh yes, we are good. I've got brake fluid there. Obviously one caution with brake fluid is it is corrosive, so it acts a bit like an acid, so it eats through paintwork and your skin, so always wear gloves. Right, so this is how we have set up, ready to get the brake fluid pumped out. So I've got a bit of tube on here into a little drum like that, and I've got my little helper here for pressing the brake pedal. So we've given Cora some instructions on what she's going to do. So we're basically going to open the bleed screw, and then Cora's going to press the pedal down. Then when it's down, she'll hold it there, and I'll nip that back up. And then go up, Cora. Open the bleed screw again, and then down, Cora. Yep. And then up. Down. Yep. Up. Down. Up. Down. Up. Down. Up. Down. Up. Now we've got a good bit of brake fluid through there. So you obviously also need to keep double checking your reservoir to make sure you don't run out. So every kind of half a dozen pumps, you want to just check your reservoir, make sure it's got oil, brake fluid in it, and just top it up as and when you need to, because the last thing you want to do is let the reservoir go fully empty. So I'll probably do that a few more times and then repeat the exact same process on the other 3 calipers. So once you're finished bleeding, we're just going to take that out of there and then use a spanner or a socket, just give that a little nip and you're good to move on to the next one. So here's a quick look at the exact same setup but on the back of the car. The bleed screw on the back is a 7mm socket or spanner you'll need, whereas the front was an 8. But other than that, the process is exactly the same. I just wanted to mention, obviously doing it this way, you can get obviously very clear result in the clear pipe. So you can see that is pure fluid in there. Obviously we're just changing the brake fluid in this instance, but if you are bleeding these brakes, you would want to keep going until you didn't have any air bubbles or anything like that. So say you changed the brake pipe and you are doing this, you would want to keep going until you had a nice clear stream of oil like we have there and no air bubbles present whatsoever. Obviously after doing this, you need to thoroughly make sure you've got a good pedal before driving anywhere or setting off in the car. So always give it a good few pumps, make sure your level in the reservoir is correct. Good few pumps, move the car forward, check the brakes are still working before you go anywhere. A bit of a disclaimer here as well, if you are not confident mechanically, doing anything with the brakes is fairly risky. So any sort of worry you've got, just don't do them and get a professional to do it for you. Right, we'll move on to the next area, which is back down here. Right, so 13mm spanner, and we're going to whip the caliper off. So, right, I need a 17 as well to hold the side. Right, so just get the other one slackened off. I say these have all rolled to bits not that long ago, so there shouldn't be, nothing should be really too concerning. And that one out, and then tell you what we'll do, we'll just press the piston a little bit. The camera's in the way a bit here, but just so it's a bit easier when we're putting them back together. I mean, I could do with refurbing these calipers, to be fair, but I mean, the seals look alright on them. They're just getting a bit rusty and crusty. So we'll stick that there out the road. Whoa, smell a bit. But yeah, as you can see, there is plenty of meat left on them. They've just had quite a hard last outing, I would say. But what we'll do is we'll get some I'm not going to take much cleaning up these, but get the good old brake and clutch brake and clutch cleaner. Tell you what, so don't make a mess on my floor. I'll stick my drain tin under here to catch the rubbish. So take them out and just give a bit clean up the edges. What I'll do is maybe it's just wire brush up the surfaces as well. So I'll do the same with that one. Just give them edges a bit of a clean where they sit, because we'll put some copper slip back on them and we'll put them back in. Sorry, you couldn't really see that, but yeah, just brake and clutch cleaner, and then just give them a clean up, because you see that they don't need too much, these. And again, I'm just going to do the same. If you needed to, you take these springs off. That'll take 2 seconds to pop off, don't they? I can show you. But under here, you want to make sure this is nice and clean. Scrape any rust off if there's any, but obviously these haven't been to bits that long. Clean these springs up. Just get them a bit clean up. And then that just clips back into there. Same with the top one, but like I say, these are pretty fairly clean anyway. And we'll pop, oh, these are nice and lubricated as well. So that's what you're looking for. You want them nice and lubricated up. Make sure they're nice and free to move. As they are, but I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll get some copper slip and we'll just give them a clean up and put some fresh copper slip on. And we'll just pop them out and then we'll wipe down. squirt of fresh copper slip. Probably way too much, but I'll put that back in there. And we'll see what it'll pop on. There you go. Same with the bottom one. Just give that a wipe down. Obviously they're lovely and clean. Have copper slip on there and finger. As you put too much on, you get a bit of a air trap, but there you go, lovely and free. Pardon me. Right, so onto the pads. So wherever the pads move in the caliper, so down here and up here where they've got to move backwards and forwards, a little bit of copper slip on that area as well. It's not too much, but something along those lines. And obviously that sits back in there. And then the same with these ones. I've got enough. Yeah, that'll do. Put back in. And we're also going to put a wee bit just where the caliper contacts the pad. So there and there. And obviously the piston touches the back. That's on like that. Oh, I've just realised backing of the pad's fallen up, come off that back one. Good lord, right, I'll give that a clean off. Probably won't make that much difference, but there you go. If it's on there, it's probably there for a reason. Right. Now we'll get this manoeuvred back into place. See, pushing that piston back just a little bit at the start there, it's making that a lot easier. Get them two bolts started and then nip them both up. You want a good nip, you don't want your brakes falling to bits. Right, so obviously we're pushing the piston back a little bit. If you got in the car now and press the pedal would probably drop away more than normal, but whenever doing anything like this, always before you set off in the car, give the brakes a good few presses, move away, give them a good press to make sure that they're working. And that wraps up the caliper maintenance for this corner. So we're going to do pretty much exactly the same thing as this on the other side. The backs are slightly different, but principally the same. You can take the caliper off, the slides on the caliper, pads, discs, pretty much exactly the same. So the only other thing left to have a look at in this vicinity while we are here, so suspension components. So we will just reposition the camera. So you've got the strut and the springs up here. So with a spring, obviously if it's not broken, it's fine. If it's really corroded, you might be wanting to think about doing something with it, but if it's not broken, not really corroded, should be fine. Also the shock absorber you're looking for, if there's any leaking, any oil leaking out of it, then obviously that's an indicator it needs changed. As we move down, obviously should have mentioned the brake pipe. This has got braided hoses on, but any leaks around the brake pipes is to be concerned about. You could also get a pry bar and just check the kind of bushes, wishbone bushes. There's 2 of them. You can pry bar in and give it a bit lever, see if there's any movement on it, that sort of thing. Always worth checking and looking at. See we have bottom ball joints. There's a ball joint on the, obviously on the, around here on the bottom of here. So again, you know, looking for any play on it. Same with anti-roll bar bushes here. But I know this is all pretty solid. It's got power flex bushes kind of everywhere, but yeah, you can get a good feel of things. Everything's pretty solid on this little bus, this little old bus. But yeah, so that kind of wraps up about everything that I would have a look at around here anyway. So yeah, see, we'll just repeat the exact same thing at the other side and on the back as well, but we'll get the wheel back on and get it dropped back down. Right, we'll put the wheel back on now. So just chat up a little bit, take the weight back off the axle stand, get the axle stand out. Wheel, obviously make sure around here is nice and clean. I mean, this has got decent copper slip on, same with the wheel. But I'm not going to bother putting any more copper slip on. Already got a decent bit on. So it's basically the opposite of taking it off. So what we'll do is just get our socket ready there, and then we put a little bit of copper slip on the wheel bolts as well. But like I say, these ones are fairly well copper slipped up. Get your bolt holes lined up. Get the first one in, and then basically repeat till you've got all of them in, hand tight. Make sure you get them started on the threads first. Give them a little nip with this. And then drop it back down. Right, then we want to torque the wheel nuts up. Now, I think from memory they are 90. 90 or 100? 100. I'll do 100. If it's anything different, I'll put it on the screen. I mean, if you didn't have a torque wrench, set that to 100. Yeah, the click. I mean, if you haven't got a torque wrench, you can kind of see how you bar the same sort of length, how much pressure you're putting on it. And that's it, done. So that brings me to the end of servicing this little Clio 172 Cup. You might have noticed there was a couple of little things that we didn't cover. One being a pollen filter, cabin air filter. This, with it being the Cup model, so stripped out supposed racing version, doesn't have a pollen filter, so there's nothing to change there. Also a fuel filter, which would be quite a common thing on a service. That isn't one fitted separately to this car, but that is a one internally on the pump that's in the tank from what I've read online anyway, so it's classed as technically a non-service item. So if you've liked this video, you can also check out the rear axle refurbishment video, which I'll link to that across on the side now. And also, if you're interested on sort of what the costs were to get an old car like this back on the road after a long spell parked up, I'll put a link to that video at the side as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.